Chapter 10 of Find Your Way Home is Forgive and Feel Freedom. This chapter begins, "The scales of justice weigh more heavily on the poor and those who struggle in systems. It has never been fair, and the only way out is to forgive it all. We are called to forgive all those who have harmed us. We are called to forgive all the harm we have done to ourselves. We are called to forgive all the people we have harmed. Forgiveness allows us to move forward in peace." When I read this chapter, my response is yes, and. Yes, forgiveness allows us to move forward in peace. And yes, the scales of justice weigh more heavily on the poor and those who struggle in systems. And because of this, the call to forgiveness has consistently been used as a hammer against black and brown people, against people living in poverty, against anyone who comes up on the short side of a power analysis of our society. We who are privileged and powerful are always more than ready to preach and even demand the virtue of forgiveness from those who are oppressed. Sure, we benefit from a system that allows our wealth to escalate while yours is sucked away. Sure, our children are safe walking the streets while yours can be killed because of how they look. Sure, I can celebrate in the streets with impunity when my sports team wins a championship, while you get tear-gassed and thrown in jail for standing in that same street just saying that your life matters. But you need to forgive. I absolutely believe that, as Desmond Tutu says, there is no future without forgiveness. But I just as strongly believe that forgiveness is mine neither to expect nor demand from those whose oppression comes at my hands. The stories in this chapter that go with forgive and feel freedom are instructive. They are stories about embracing God's forgiveness. There are stories about the struggle with self-forgiveness. And then there's this story. I have forgiven the man who abused me when I was a child. I can pray for him and hope for wholeness. That didn't come until after crossing a desert of hurt, and then fording a river of confusion and confrontation, and finally climbing the hill of acceptance. But I am so grateful that I know the sweet taste of forgiveness. I love that I can see that even in that pain there were gifts that I have used in my life. I marvel that part of who I am was born from that experience, and it makes me love the world more. Let me read part of that again. That forgiveness didn't come until after crossing a desert of hurt, and then fording a river of confusion and confrontation, and finally climbing the hill of acceptance. Forgiveness is the gateway to freedom, but those who have been injured and oppressed have to come to that forgiveness themselves. Before you forgive, you have to be given the space to express the pain, the rage, and the confusion. You have to be able to confront the trauma that has been visited upon you, and at times confront the person or persons who have inflicted that trauma, and invite them into self-examination, confession, repentance, and amendment of life. You have to be able to climb the hill of acceptance, but only after you have had a chance to give your pain voice and have that voice heard. The brilliance of Magdalene is it creates a safe community for women who have been through extreme trauma to come together and cry with their Creator and each other, to express the pain and the rage and the confusion, to shout with one voice and 100 individual voices that their lives matter. And not have anyone say, "Hush now, don't you know that all lives matter?" Forgive and feel freedom. Yes, and until those of us who have power and privilege give those of us who have not the space to express the pain, rage, and confusion, space and time to confront both trauma and traumatizers, we are nothing but the bully in the playground who keeps going, "Pow, forgive me. Pow, forgive me. Pow, forgive me."